Rahul Verma, the manager of Apex Bank, had always been a man of routine. Every day, he arrived at his desk by 9 a.m. sharp, meticulously going through the transactions and overseeing his staff. But that evening, as he prepared to leave, the landline rang. A glance at the clock showed it was 10:30 p.m. Who could be calling this late? Hesitantly, he picked up the receiver. "Hello?" he said, his voice slightly wary. A hollow silence followed. Then, a rasping whisper. "Managers say the vault is not empty." A chill ran down Rahul's spine. "Who is this?" he demanded. Click. The line went dead. He exhaled sharply, brushing it off as a prank. But something about the voice felt ancient, inhuman. Shaking his head, he grabbed his coat and turned off the lights. Just as he was about to step out, the lights flickered back on. The entire bank was supposed to be empty, yet a dull creak echoed from the basement where the vault was. His rational mind told him to leave, but an inexplicable pull made him walk toward the heavy iron door. It stood ajar. That wasn't possible. The vault had an automatic security lock that engaged after 8 p.m. He swallowed hard and stepped inside. Rows of safe deposit boxes lined the walls. The air was thick, damp. He felt watched. His eyes darted around when suddenly thud. The vault door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed him. His breathing quickened. He fumbled for his phone, but there was no signal. He turned on the flashlight and froze. In the corner, a figure stood hunched, facing away. Dressed in tattered banker's clothing, its skeletal fingers twitched. Then, slowly, it turned. A rotting face with hollow sockets stared at him, lips stretched into an unnatural grin. "Still counting?" it whispered. Rahul screamed, pounding on the vault door, but it wouldn't budge. The last thing he saw before his flashlight flickered out was the figure lunging at him, its bony fingers reaching for his throat. And then, only darkness remained. Rahul woke up gasping for breath. The vault was silent. He scrambled to his feet, his phone's flashlight still on, casting eerie shadows. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Impossible," he muttered. Had he imagined the figure? A whisper slid through the darkness. He never left. Rahul whirled around, the light falling on a portrait hanging in the vault. It was an old, yellowed photograph of the bank's first manager from the 1800s, Mr. Dutt. His eyes, though frozen in the picture, seemed to follow Rahul. The records. Maybe they had something about this vault. Rahul rushed to the storage section at the back, rifling through old files. His trembling hands found a dusty ledger marked 1,899 accounts closed. He flipped through the pages. One entry stood out. "Mr. Dutt, last transaction, incomplete. Vault remains occupied." A knock sounded from behind him. Rahul turned slowly. The vault's darkness seemed deeper now, stretching into a corridor that hadn't been there before. A whisper curled around him, cold and hollow. "Finish the transaction." Rahul backed away. "This isn't real, I'm hallucinating." The air shifted, growing heavier. Shadows slithered along the floor, creeping toward him. He tried to run, but his feet wouldn't move. The cold touch of invisible hands gripped his shoulders, forcing him toward the ledger. The pages flipped on their own. The last entry was still incomplete. Below it, ink dripped as if freshly written, signed to balance the account. His breath came in ragged gasps. Was this why the bank had never spoken about its first manager? Had he been trapped here forever? The pen lifted from the desk and hovered in the air before him. Sign it. A scream lodged in his throat as unseen fingers curled around his own, guiding his hand toward the page. The moment his name met the ink, an unbearable cold spread through his veins. Rahul's vision blurred. The vault around him faded, the walls stretching into endless rows of safety boxes. Whispers filled the space, each voice murmuring accounts unfinished, transactions left open. And then he saw them. Ghostly figures, former managers, accountants, tellers, all trapped within the vault, their faces frozen in silent screams. They had all signed. Rahul tried to fight it, but the ink spread through his skin like veins of black ice. His body stiffened as the vault door creaked open once more. Morning light spilled inside, and a bank guard peered in. "Sir?" he called, stepping in cautiously. But there was no one there. Only a dusty ledger with a freshly signed name. A week passed, and Apex Bank appointed a new manager, Vikram Joshi. He was ambitious, eager to make a mark. But from the day he stepped into the office, things felt off. The landline rang at odd hours. Files shifted overnight. And every evening, as he prepared to leave, he swore he heard whispers near the vault. One night, curiosity got the better of him. He descended into the basement, pushing open the heavy vault door. His flashlight cut through the thick darkness, revealing a lone, dusty ledger sitting on a table. As he turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind him. And in the corner, a hunched figure, dressed in a tattered manager's suit, turned slowly. Its hollow sockets locked onto Vikram. A whisper floated through the cold air. Still counting? Days passed. The bank staff grew uneasy. Their new manager had been missing for 2 nights now, but no one dared to enter the vault. Then, one morning, the landline rang. The clerk who answered it paled. "Yes? Who is this?" A hollow whisper slithered through the line. "The vault is not empty." That night, as the security guard patrolled the bank, he noticed something unusual. The vault door was ajar. Inside, a new portrait had appeared on the wall. Vikram Joshi, his eyes hollow, his lips curled into a silent scream. The dusty ledger remained open, its ink still wet, waiting for the next manager.